They say a lie can get around the world before the truth has got its boots on. Well, now the truth has its boots, and it is time to start kicking. William de Worde, The Truth. The Daily Grind, Chapter 145. Okay, so the important thing to take away from all this, James said to his friends around the table in the Lairs dining area, is that I was right. I am always right. My word is beyond reproach. We should all, always listen to James. I don't think, Sarah started to say, waving a forkful of salad like a magic wand. Now, there may be some objections to my new benevolent dictatorship of knowledge, James continued pontificating, but I think we're all understanding of the circumstances wherein I, your glorious leader, am always perfect. Anesh crossed his arms and leaned back from the table. He didn't have any food to ignore, just a laptop, making him the odd one out of their lunch. Hey now, hang on. I literally saved you from a fate worse than death not even 10 hours ago. Perfect in both my correctness and my choice of consorts. James was standing up now, hand over his heart, as he gave an impassioned and absolutely hammed-up speech. Truly, the era of my... If I apologize again, do you think he'll stop? JP stage whispered to Sarah. She shrugged and devoured another tomato wedge. Try it and find out. Couldn't hurt. Want to bet? Dave asked, looking ready to toss money onto the table. No, Sarah flatly stated. Try it, she prompted JP. Hey, can I... JP cut off James's ongoing nonsense, which hadn't stopped this whole time. Can I actually say I'm sorry? I really, honest to God, did not mean to almost kill you. I thought... He looked away, and James actually did stop goofing off and sobered up as JP, for the first time since James had known him, tripped on his words. I thought I could help, he said, lamely, hands spread on the table, still making eye contact with James, but with none of the defiant snark he normally had. I thought I could help you. Fucking finally. Like a real solution, you know? And of course it's a stupid idea and you almost die. That's obvious, right? JP huffed. That's just where we're fated to be. You depressed and me not that useful. Okay, for real, I'm not mad, James said quietly. I'm just being a ham. I didn't actually think you tried to kill me. No? Why not? JP demanded. You fucking trust everyone. It is a terrible idea. Eventually, you're going to get stabbed in the back. Might as well be from me. James sat down and stole a cucumber from Sarah's irresponsibly large salad. I get the feeling you're not really that mad at me. No shit, JP snapped. I'm mad at me. I fucked up. You didn't do anything wrong. You just survived. And you aren't even mad. What the hell was your plan if I had betrayed you, huh? James stared at him as the whole dining area went silent suddenly. His face went from concerned friendship to an iron gaze for a brief instant, and when he answered, JP froze. There are 6 camera condas within line of sight of you right now. 2 of them are armed with conventional weaponry, and so are the 8 human diners. There are 2 more dungeon tech weapons, 2 infomorphs on standby to attempt a surrender or kill command if necessary. There's also some grenade drones in the rafters above you, and you will note that from where Nate is standing at the serving line, there is no one between you and the wall, so if he has to fireball you repeatedly, he can. Also, we put a thermite bomb under your chair. James held up his phone, which currently showed a pre-dialed number and a big green "Place Call" button. His eyes had an anger in them that JP had never really seen him express before. JP, we asked you to teleport back for lunch so we could find out if you were hostile or compromised or betraying us, and do something about it if we had to. James stopped talking and silence took over the room again. Eventually, JP slowly looked around, careful not to make any sudden moves. Oh, he said. Well, good. Yeah. James leaned over and stole more cucumber from Sarah's salad to her mild protest. Fortunately, that's not the case. You just made a mistake, and that happens. I'm alive, the problem is contained, and you can have lunch now. JP looked down at his plate. I'm not very hungry, he said. Very not hungry. I think I'm going to go, actually. Decay and I have a lot of work to do. He stood up, flicking a telepad into his wrist. I told her I was coming back for supplies or something, he admitted, not making eye contact with anyone. Hey, Sarah said as JP wrote an address on his pad. We're still friends, you know? James asked something slightly different. You okay, man? I don't know, JP admitted, putting on a false smile as he glanced up. I guess I got used to you trusting me, he said, and then he was gone. Well, Dave said, that went well. Everyone stared at him. So show of hands, James raised his own preemptively. Who was surprised by how hard he took that? Everyone at the table and half the people within earshot put their hands up. James almost wanted to laugh as the more experienced knights who had been around for a while explained to the newer members what was going on, and then a few new hands went up too. I actually kind of expected it, Sarah said, waving her own hand from side to side. I mean, okay, yes, JP likes to pretend to be really aloof and holier than thou, right? Right. Correct. Absolutely. Wow, no one even hesitated there. Sarah raised her eyebrows at the rest of the table. Anyway, the point is, he's not wrong. He got used to being trusted. Now he probably feels like he heckered that up for this whole almost replacing James with a puppeteer husk of mysterious origins and intent thing. And he's not mad, really. He's just worried things are going to change again and we won't want him around. James glumly traced lines on the table with an unenthusiastic finger. Oh, he said, sadness in his tone. I should text him. No, you should wait for him to contact you, Sarah said. Let him do it on his terms. Let him feel like the bad guy for a bit and get over his self-pity without help. He won't, thank you for it, but you know that's what JP does. Everyone glanced at Dave, who flicked his eyes around the table and then shrugged. I mean, yeah, she's right, he admitted. He's my best friend, but I don't think he's ever really felt like he had to apologize for anything in his life. It's probably weird for him. Can I just say, Anesh cut in as he stood and closed his laptop, preparing to head back to one of the basements, that it's kinda weird being in a group where someone literally almost died and we're more worried about the feelings of JP than the potential murder victim? Ah, whatever. James flipped a hand with casual grace as he also stood from his chair. I'm fine, and you comforted me enough last night. Sarah's eyes sparkled. Oh, really? She leaned in with an expression that demanded juicy details. James and Anesh, having a quick hug before one partner left, both looked at her, and then rolled their heads away so they could face the other direction, while the blush spread across their collective face. Corridor filled. Bond formed. Embarrassment. Share, speed. Vector, eyesight. One corridor established, no corridors empty. That does it? James burst out suddenly as the second circular marking on the back of his hand from the attic flared with a brief pink and red glow before reshaping itself slightly, Anesh's matching mark doing something very similar, if not exactly the same. Months of searching for Alana together, a half-dozen delves, fighting officium assassins in parking garages, a million tiny things that make me love you, lots of sex, and this is the fucking thing that unlocks the attic link? James hammered his knuckles into the unyielding surface of the cafeteria table, rattling the dishes still on it. No! This will not stand. I refuse to be embarrassed into being magical. So, the syntax on that changed a little. Anesh casually acted like James wasn't in the middle of passive-aggressively ranting at the dungeon magic. It looks like it dropped the numbers and just straight up lets us share a thing now. Did you feel anything change with your bond with James? He asked Sarah. Sarah didn't answer. She was flopped over the table without regard for her hair getting in her salad as she let out peals of laughter. Eventually, gasping for breath, she cut off James's rant herself to inform everyone, I'm helping! In a gasping squeak before mirth overtook her again. Do you want to try this out? Anesh asked James, embarrassment replaced by amused exasperation at his friends. Nah, James said, snapping out of his rambling and into a casual tone once more. Not right now, anyway, because I promise you we're going to hurt ourselves testing it out, and I don't need more bruises right now. You especially don't. We'll hang out later tonight, maybe shoot some hoops. Simon and Momo want a duos rematch anyway. Sounds good. We can humiliate ourselves on the field of valor, Anesh said, saluting James dramatically. All right, I'm off. Sarah, please don't forget to breathe, and if JP comes back, let him know I'm only a little mad. Can do. Dave nodded at Anesh, while James gave him another, better hug before he left for real. James stretched his arms overhead. Okay, I've got to talk to Nate. You guys have fun with whatever you get up to. Sarah, You're still dying. Okay. Well, if you need someone for your podcast recording later, let me know. I'll be here all day. I doubt I'll actually have that much to do. Oh, don't say that out loud, Sarah chastised him, knowing how this worked. Want to join my response shift? Dave asked. Sure, later. Got a thing now. James nodded at them. And yeah, thanks for being here. I know I don't say this too often, but fuck, thanks. I knew you were too cheerful for someone who almost died, Sarah accused him with a pointed finger. You... I'll get back to you on whatever I am later. James walked off, not sticking around to hear whatever non-swear word his friend was going to come up with. The kitchen, as always, was a bastion of order in the otherwise chaotic domain of the lair. The response teams were learning and developing a kind of militant organization themselves, but everyone else? No. Research was so overwhelmed they regularly forgot about magical artifacts. Not even forgot in the anti-meme context, they just couldn't keep track of everything. The basements were in a constant state of motion without any real direction, with at least one of them having literal excavation going on, and another being remodeled into a bathroom that Nate was reasonably sure someone had modeled after one of the ones from the Harry Potter movies. No clue yet if it was a good idea or not, but if anyone tried to put moving staircases in here, he was shooting them first and calling OSHA second. Non-lethally, probably, but it was the principle of the OSHA violation. Oh, and the engineers. God damn the engineers. Yes, Nate was aware that many of them were nice people, but they kept asking him questions, assuming that he knew more than he actually did just because he was here first. At least Agent Decay left him alone once he told her that he was only slightly less new than she was. The engineers kept coming back, trying to get his opinion on things any time they couldn't find James, and then leaving cables and soldering iron burns on his tables. Well, not his tables, but damned if he hadn't gotten attached to this place a little bit. No, Nate was perfectly happy to just work in the kitchen, listen to some heavy metal, sometimes go fight monsters as a hobby, and be left alone. His prep cooks understood that. They also understood how to do the damn dishes, which was a minor miracle on its own, and it really added up to a kitchen that was all at once clean, organized, and comfortable, even if it was busy sometimes. And now James was in it, saying hi to Knife and Fangs and asking Nate questions. James was like an engineer with the questions, except Nate was pretty sure he wouldn't be able to glare his boss out of the room. He'd tried once, and James hadn't actually noticed. On the other hand, the kid, and Nate did think of him as a kid even still, had seen more combat in a year than Nate had in 2 tours. He'd fought for his life and the lives of other people, and he'd killed when he needed to, so he'd earned a few answers at least. Especially since Nate had technically asked him to be here. So, you wanted to talk about the old gun? James was asking. Nate wiped his hands on a mostly dry sanitizer towel before balling the cloth up and pitching it across the room into one of the strategically placed buckets that were around the place. No. Originally, yes, but not anymore. Oh, so nothing happened? Nothing. Yet. Miles is tailing the woman the gun made contact with, but so far it looks like she's a factory safety inspector for a medical conglomerate. And is she? James asked. Nate frowned. You do understand that just because I worked for the Bureau doesn't mean I have special powers to know things, right? I forget sometimes, James admitted. It's a lifetime of bad American TV. Okay, so we haven't seen the old gun around. We don't know what she's doing. That's kind of worrying all on its own, but you wanted to talk about her? I had wanted to talk to you about what the most possible force we could bring to bear was, Nate said. Potential preemptive solutions to it. What, like just kill her as soon as she surfaces? James asked. Nate nodded, leaning his shoulder into the thin strip of corner wall near the coffee machines. Yep, he agreed without hesitation. It's obviously not human. doesn't have our best interests at heart. Plus, from what you said, it wasn't even really trying that hard, and you only got away on a technicality. The only downside to a preemptive strike is not knowing if it'll work, and also it might disrupt whatever supernatural power ecosystem there is out there. I'm meaning to ask about that, too, James said, sniffing a probably unused mug before pouring himself a cup of coffee into it. Have we managed to locate anyone else like the Order? Just the alchemists, Nate shook his head. And from what you told us earlier, fuck. Just fuck. Bad news for everyone there. No kidding. We're gonna need to get on that. But, it's weird, right? That there isn't a power game going on? Big groups like dungeon nations absorbing or forming treaties with smaller organizations like us, ideologies and practices coming into conflict and alliances, human shit, but with magic. James sipped his coffee and burned his lips, swearing lightly as he did so. But there's almost nothing. That just feels wrong, he said. Nate didn't really have an argument against that. Yeah, he said. It did feel wrong. I think what worries me the most is that the Bureau is starting to get involved, the chef admitted. They're not stupid, honestly. People are going to catch on, especially the analysts, once they know what to look for. We have a window where we're on top of things, but it's not going to last. We? James gave him an earnest grin, but let it fade as he moved back to the original topic. Well, as for killing the old gun before she kills us first, I have no clue. The thing is, she's impossibly fast. Fast to the point the Camercondas couldn't contain her. It took 2 of them to slow her down to the point that I could shoot her without doing a Neo impression, and even that wasn't really enough. Explosives? Nate asked. I mean, maybe. Sarah blew her leg off and she just rebuilt herself, so, Well, fuck. Nate rubbed at the tattoos on one of his arms. Can she die? I mean, that's largely the problem, isn't it? James answered. We could try literally nuking her. I'm pretty sure that we could... No. But just one no. Fine, our options become slightly more limited then. Thing is, and I was talking to Anesh about this the other day, we don't have a lot of typical fantasy bullshit in our armory. We don't have force shields and wards and health potions. No one can cast fireball. Yet. James shrugged. We can come up with solutions to a lot of weird problems, but I don't think she's one of them, he admitted. Which I suppose is why it's a good thing that wasn't what you actually wanted to talk about, and now I've sidetracked us a few conversational miles in a weird direction. He winced guiltily, stepping back against the wall to let the Camerconda prep cook slither by him. Knife and Fangs was humming to himself, using his actual voice and not the connected speakers. A set of the prototype manipulator arms were strapped to his back, the collection of servos and motors allowing the Camercondas, with enough practice, to experience the gratification of having hands, even if they weren't very good hands yet. He was also ignoring the conversation going on between the 2 humans. Fighting monsters and risking life and limb wasn't his style, even now that he had limbs to risk. He was here for food. Nate and James watched the enthusiastic snake move past before Nate looked back up and resumed their chat. So, you had a whole thing about poverty and logistics a while back, right? I distinctly remember that I have never actually shut up about this, yeah, James agreed. Great, I've got a suggestion. Nate bluntly ignored James's sarcasm. Expand our usable cold storage. Buy direct from farms from now on. Does that solve anything? It doesn't. It's proof of concept. You're going to want centralized food storage and production, though, for your city thing. James gave his chef a look. I know you know the word, he said. Also, this doesn't actually solve the main problem, which is logistics. Teleport everything. See, that's the thing. James threw a hand up in the air. The telepads are very cool, but they only teleport things you are carrying. Clothes, backpack, sure. But if you're touching a car, it doesn't bring the car with you. We have tried a lot. We have done a lot of permutations on some weird experiments. There is no way that we can blip a truck full of tomatoes across state lines. I've got another suggestion, Nate said. And this is the real one. Just carry the truck. James took a sip of coffee, cocked an eyebrow, and waited patiently for Nate to explain, saying nothing about how dumb of an idea that was. I know Alana is pretty tough, but she's not here, and I don't think she can pick up a car, he said. Nate ignored him. So here's the deal. It has to be you carrying the stuff, right? He didn't wait for an agreement before continuing. So you need to have a different body. The notepads come from the same dungeon as the purple orb, so I'm assuming the same rules apply. We've already got someone who has limited success getting the purples to apply to a drone body. Wait, really? James asked. Yeah, the chick in research, the one that's helping you make acid from a couple of months ago. Nick something? Nick's a guy. Also, I don't know why I don't know about this. Wait, is this about the LSD? James asked. Guy, my bad. Absolutely is, too, Nate worryingly confirmed. According to some of the support group, the disassociation it causes makes using Skelljacks a lot easier for some things. So Nick started testing it with the drone controller. I guess at some point they got at least one purple to transfer over. If you believe your body's a different body, that's good enough, I guess. Was it bad that it doesn't bother me that a good chunk of our organization is dropping acid when I'm not around? It bothers me that they didn't invite me, Nate grumbled. Do they think I'm a narc? James snorted and pointed out. You don't have a Skulljack. I'll get one if they'll share their drugs, Nate laughed gruffly. Ah, whatever. Anyway, that's my point. Use a different body with the teleporters to move stuff. That's it. How do you know all this and I don't? People keep asking me questions because they think I know stuff, and all the new kids think they aren't allowed to go to your office. I'm setting up a desk in the goddamn lobby. Another sip of coffee, James's mind slowly turning the ideas over in his head. Okay, but how would we... He stopped as a number of previous ideas and facts collided in a glorious connection. I have to go, he said. I have to go talk to Momo, right now. Wait here. He sat down the half-empty cup of wisdom coffee, turned, and sprinted out of the room, nearly clipping somebody on the other side of the door. Nate stared at the swinging kitchen door for a few seconds before bellowing after James, I work here! And then turning to get back to his actual job. Jackass, he muttered under his breath. Hey, you got that parsley chopped? He asked, knife and fangs. The Camerconda nodded, and calm order returned to the kitchen. For now. Nate was sure it wouldn't last, but at least for a little bit he could relax and get something useful done. And now, the small news! Sarah spoke in the crispest voice she could manage into the microphone. It had been shocking at first when one of her purple effects had helped her out with that. It had taken her a while to realize that whatever gave +1 to memorability also helped her with this. Public speaking, maybe. A distinctive voice. A good first impression. Who knew what it was actually changing? It was something, and it was helpful. That was fun trivia, but it wasn't why she was here now. She had a job to do, and it was a pretty fun one for her. 3 things this week, she intoned with a smile. The small news was her favorite. It wasn't a put-down at all. It was the news that wasn't warping the world, wasn't about impending doom. It was little things that mattered, that were special, but that weren't going to kill them all if they ignored them. It was nice. First off, yesterday was the name-choosing ceremony for Myriad Shining Sparks Overhead. According to her, she'd like to go by Miri, thanks to everyone who was there for the special occasion, and hello to Miri for the first time on air. Sarah laughed, happy and infectious. Second off, a community announcement that there will be guitar lessons every other Thursday in the front room. Your 2 teachers will be competing to see whether 10 years of experience lets you play Smoke on the Water better than 2 skill ranks. So... honestly, that sounds like a blast. I'm going to go to that. This was probably the 8th thing that Sarah had committed to going to. It would have been a problem if she ever actually ran out of energy. And finally, due to a completely harmless accident in research, she absolutely needed to front-load that qualifying statement every time she said something like this, there's a new orange orb absorption available. The tongue twister nearly tripped her up, but Sarah managed to get through it. She gave a grateful nod to the intern helping her run the soundboard as the other girl passed Sarah a tablet screen with the reminder information on it. If you'd forgotten, because we barely ever find them, the orange orbs warp space, give licenses when cracked, and when absorbed give you a job. Well, that's nice. I don't have enough jobs. Her intern let out a surprised laugh that was just audible enough to be picked up by the mic, and Sarah smiled. She'd probably leave that in the edit. Info on absorbing is in the manual, obviously, and you can requisition a copy of the orb if you want it. But remember, so far as we know, my favorite phrase, you can only absorb one and you can't ever change it. She paused to double-check the line that the intern had just handed her. Really? She asked, facing slightly away from the mic. The other girl just shrugged at her, curiosity and excitement in her eyes. All right, I guess. Sarah turned back, trying to get cleaner audio. This one asks you to pull 126 weeds. And as with all of these, there's probably some kind of pedantically specific definition on that, but whatever. If you do, it generates an 8-ounce cube of diamond. This cannot be right. Sarah paused, then giggled. Oh, whatever. Of course it's right. Well, I look forward to everyone getting really into gardening. Before she could let herself go off on any more tangents, Sarah wrapped things up. That's been the small news for today. As always, that's going to be it for us this week. Everyone make sure to tune in next time. We will be asking Federal Agent Tiffany Decay awkward questions about her hobbies, and also talking about an end to cancer. Or, download a file of someone else tuning in. I know what you've been doing. You can't just... The intern decided to clip the audio off there. Sarah agreed it made for a much more dramatic ending. Problem. Harvey opened the conversation with James. Unlike the high schoolers, the engineers, the support group, and basically half the order at this point, Harvey had zero problem approaching James in his own office. Okay. James set down the pair of wire cutters he was idly twirling while he stared at his laptop screen, and tried to figure out how to phrase the part of the operations manual on the importance of giving dungeons dramatic names in a way that didn't make it sound silly. 1 to 10 it for me. 1 being poor buffet selection, 10 being nuclear apocalypse. Harvey gave James a look, almost angry, but more the kind of look of someone who doesn't have time for fun right now. He didn't say anything right away, waiting to see if James would course correct on how he wanted to approach the conversation. The head of response had changed since James had last really talked to him. He had a neatly trimmed goatee now, and his face looked sharper, almost. Have you lost weight? James was a little concerned. Harvey, like most of the people they had rescued from Officium Mundi's conference room oh so long ago, hadn't exactly been in the kind of physical condition where losing weight was a good idea. Also, sorry, what's the problem? Anything I can help with? Now, Harvey answered, his desire for a baseline of seriousness suitably met. I'm not sure. The problem is we're on the internet. Again? Worse this time. Someone uploaded videos of 2 of the paper pusher interceptions to YouTube. Fuck. James bit his lip. Okay, that's bad, but... One of them got some notice. Most people think it's an ARG of some kind, but they haven't been picked up by any newswire yet. Which makes sense because the police haven't actually made it public that they're looking for us. So people can believe it's a fan film or something. Harvey sighed and settled into one of James's guest chairs, leaning back but not getting comfortable. There's a lot of comments asking for more information. There's also a lot of people who think we're terrorists. Why? A lot of the attention came around because we got mentioned on some conspiracy theory talk radio show. The host kept referring to us as tools of the globalist agenda, also brainwashed programmed killbots. So, Harvey sighed and rubbed his palms onto his forehead. I do not know what to do with that information. That sounds familiar. Wait, hang on. Did we get mentioned by fucking Alex Jones? James smirked. And then, when Harvey gave him a dead stare, the smirk turned into a worried frown. Wait, seriously? Really? James had rebounded from his own frown, and now a worryingly excited grin sat on his face. I literally wrote in the manual that we're not a conspiracy. That's hilarious. I'm getting a t-shirt made that says Official Globalist Killbot on it now. Please don't, Harvey said. This is a real problem. We aren't going to stay secret by accident for much longer. We need a better first impression than rifle fire in a loading dock. Okay. James smothered his wild smile. Being perfectly serious, I've been worrying about this for a year now. How we come out, who we talk to, what we do, I don't know, it's overwhelming. I've been putting off even planning. We probably have a leg up on a lot of people, which is good, but we can't count on it. Have you talked to Nate recently? Only a few operational questions. Why? Harvey asked. We're building a picture of what the magical political landscape looks like, James told him. And it's not a landscape, really. It's more like islands, points of light, a few scattered groups, barely anyone gets big, and those that do just don't talk. The alchemists clearly know something, because they kinda knew that status quo died, but they didn't know specifics about us. So we're the first, or only current group that's like this? Harvey asked. How the hell did that happen? That's a worrying question, isn't it? James tried to smile, but found that he couldn't. You know, you know how I like to joke that we're not a conspiracy? Well, I'm wondering if maybe that's a bad idea. If maybe we go underground, pretend the videos were student films, shut ourselves off, work in secret. James gave a sigh that matched Harvey's own earlier, and stared at his desk in silence before he looked up. I don't know. Want to convince me that's a bad idea? Yeah. Harvey's voice was as deep as ever, but with a hint of apprehensiveness in it that couldn't be missed. I don't know if I should. He sounded bitter. We're doing good work, James pointed out. Yeah. Healing people, saving lives, helping. We are doing that. Can we keep doing that if we vanish? Well, we can vanish pretty goddamn easy, can't we? Harvey tilted his head back and stared at the ceiling tiles while he thought. Telepads don't mean we give up the dungeons. We could cut loose anyone who's not strongly invested, just set up somewhere new with the core membership. Keep costs low, do your arcology thing on a small scale, middle of a rainforest maybe, somewhere else where we're hidden. Problem is, we're basically not going to be able to keep up response, no matter what. Not if we want to be quiet. Right, James growled. Do you think we should? Go quiet, that is. Fuck no, Harvey barked a laugh. I think we should be making more noise. I think we should be reaching out to activist groups and turning them into more response teams. I think you should go on CNN tomorrow and declare that you have a privatized, non-violent, functional, magical replacement for the corrupt and brutal police system in this country. And then next Friday, I think you should do it in another country. I think if we skip lunch, we can unify humanity by April. Hiding? Hiding means we're letting them win. I don't want to let the fuckers win. James blinked. Hell of a birthday present that'd be, he muttered. I like the way you think. I also don't think we can keep up that pace. He winced as he admitted it. Harvey stood up, started pacing back and forth. Then I'll settle for just doing a little more every day, he said. But you already know you don't want to back down. People with guns have already tried to stop you. Why would you be afraid of people with smaller guns and fewer superpowers? Well, we're going to need something weirdly specific, James said. What? Harvey stopped and turned to look at the leader of the order, who was currently spinning in his office chair. You want a bigger basement? James shook his head. Worse, he said. A PR team. The young man shuddered. We're going to need to hire somebody to run social media for us. Do you think we can get away with not having a Twitter account? Or should I just give in to temptation and grow our own social media site? The look Harvey gave James this time was less upset and more just incredulous. Sometimes I feel like I've been spending too long on one thing, and I missed a lot. Is growing a new Facebook something that we can do? We'll find out, James said gleefully. 'Cause fuck Twitter. I'm going back to taking calls from people in life or death situations. It's less stressful than talking to you. Thanks for the chat, though. No problem. And I will take it seriously. James nodded at Harvey as he headed for the door. We may not be ready to grow that explosively, but... well, the world's going to keep rolling anyway. Ready or not. May as well do it on our terms, right? Always, Harvey nodded back. Good luck. The sun beat down on the asphalt and scrub grass in a way that was familiar for two reasons. Elle's hometown of Taunton, Tennessee, was an almost insignificant speck on the map that just happened to be close enough to a real city and a highway intersection that it could support not one, but two strip malls. She'd grown up here, escaped to go to college, been dragged back by social gravity over the summer, and then escaped again to go nearly die in an office building on the West Coast. Over the years of her life, Elle had vandalized probably a fifth of the non-house buildings in this town. Being back was warm and inviting, both literally and metaphorically, in that it was still 90 degrees out in the middle of January somehow, and also that it just felt comfortable to come home and not be in mortal peril for a while. Elle's hometown also abutted a rift in reality that led to another highway, a place she had finally given a name aside from the highway just before she had left the Order. Elle hadn't been able to stay with them, but she had to admit their naming scheme was excellent, and so she had called her mythical road Route Predation, and the name had stuck in her head enough that it felt real to her now, even if she hadn't been back. The way the sun was coming down now, the smell of baking weeds, the glazed look of the air over the pavement, it all reminded her of hours of driving the winding, hostile route of that place. That other road. So that's everything. Elle finished her story abruptly. Then I came home. Well, started to. I got sidetracked. You know how that goes. She stopped talking and focused on containing the leash of the incredibly enthusiastic golden retriever she was walking. Next to her, Elle's mother nodded. She kept a well-disciplined control of the 4 dogs that she had at her side, like a military unit of canine fur. "So this is the book you're writing?" she asked. Eleanor glowered at her mother. "Mom," she said, voice coming out a little sharper than she really meant it to. Or perhaps it would be more accurate to say she wasn't really trying to control her tone at all. "Come on." Her mom shook her head, and despite not coming up past Elle's chin, still gave her daughter a chill feeling that she was a parental figure, and maybe don't speak to her that way. "Well, I'm sorry, honey, it's just not the most believable story, now is it? Paper men and snake things and secret societies, you can just say you broke up with Cindy and needed some time away from home, though I'm still mad you didn't call, and I knew she wasn't good for you anyway." "Mom, Cindy and I were roommates, we weren't dating." "Oh, honey, it's all right. I'm a cool mom. I'll only judge you a little bit when you're not around." Elle's mom playfully elbowed her in one of her cracked ribs. Elle stifled a bark of pain and also a sigh of exasperation. "Am I cursed?" she asked, looking up at the sky as if expecting an answer. "Is this the Cassandra thing? I've read enough Greek tragedy to know this reference." Her mom ignored her pseudo-prayer. "Well, I'm still glad you're finally home and safe, and if you broke up with your roommate, maybe you'll have some time to help me around the house. It gets so lonely around here, what with you vanishing for a whole year, and your sister being away at school, just me by myself in that big old house." "Mom, it's a 3-bedroom house. It doesn't even have a basement for anything nightmarish to grow in." Elle rolled her eyes. "Also, come on," she said, her voice strained. "I'm trying to be honest with you, and you're just making it a joke." "Well, can you maybe do some magic then?" her mom asked. Elle paused. She technically could. "I mean, I guess. None of what I have is very impressive, though, unless you count the spell that lets me defy fate, but I don't have to charge for that." Elle glanced over at her mom, who was now giving Elle an eye roll of her own in a very sarcastic response. "Oh, come on, what am I supposed to do? Tell you I can sort through boxes super well? I could show you my old car because it had magic parts in it, but apparently that one didn't survive me being gone for a little bit." "A year!" "A little year, sure, whatever." Elle sighed. "I don't know. I wish I brought back something I could show you, or had one of the Order's weird powers, but I didn't. Don't. Whatever. I'm just me. I can make a car go faster if you want. I can take you into the route when I make sure the entrance is safe again, but I doubt you really want to." "I will if it'll prove it to you." Elle paused. She'd been looking off to her left, partially watching the dogs sniff every tuft of grass they passed by, and partially avoiding eye contact with her mother. So she hadn't noticed that her mother had stopped walking and was chatting with one of the other people out walking in the simmering sunlight. Elle tried to hold an indignant look on her face for when her mom finally finished her random conversation and came back over, but it just kept going and going, and eventually Elle found herself sprinting across a dry, grassy field with her new dog friends, occasionally tackling each other in puffs of pollen and dirt. By the time Elle's mom finished her chat, Elle was covered in grass seeds that clung to her shirt, and glad she didn't have any allergies. "Old friend of yours?" she asked her mom as they collected the dogs and started walking again, this time with Elle having to put a little more effort into not limping or showing off any of her less obvious injuries. "What's that? Oh, no, dear, just someone I wanted to say hi to." "No, I mean, where do you know them from?" Elle shook her head as she tried to pick bits of plant debris off her shoulders. "Nowhere, honey. I was just saying hello, and we got to talking. Say, would you like to get some ice cream?" Was her mother trying to bribe Elle with dessert? "Mom, it's been 15 minutes. Don't you have to actually return the dogs to the people that pay you to walk them? Like, at some point, surely." Elle sighed. Her mom didn't seem concerned. "The sun's still up, and they all know me. Mrs. Patterson especially will be glad that you've tired out Goldie there. I'm so glad you came with me today." "Yeah." Elle glanced away, not really sharing the feeling. "Wait, the golden retriever is named Goldie? Come on, that's not... I know people who name things. Professionally. I can call them. We can get better dog names. We can do this." "Oh, you can call them, but not me?" There was a silent pause. "Hey, Mom, you know what would be great? Ice cream." "I knew you'd agree." Her mother's smile flicked back on like a switch being thrown. "We can go to the place just down the road. You know, the one where the sheriff caught you breaking in when you were 12. "Oh my God, Mom, I wasn't breaking in. I was trying to get on the roof so I could draw up there." Elle's shoulders slumped. "Why does no one ever believe me about stuff like this? I haven't, spent my whole life fucking lying or anything, have I?" "Language, young lady," her mother said. And Elle went quiet. All that, and what her mom took away from it, was the swearing. Was this how normal people were? Was this why James was never worried about being found out? You tell people straight to their face that magic is real and they just call you a liar? Or worse, they change the subject and pretend that you aren't important? By the time they reached the cluster of buildings down the road, where the sidewalk was more of an ancient path that was cracks and holes over smooth concrete, and the streetlights weren't spaced evenly by the mile, Elle wasn't feeling much better. Her chest hurt. She couldn't tell if it was because of the scar tissue or just the feeling of being rejected by her parent. Also, it was a million degrees outside, and Tennessee still hadn't invented the concept of shade. Not that she'd trade this for whatever grim Pacific Northwest weather Oregon was having right now. A little too much sun was preferable to a little too much freezing rain and everything getting dark at 4 in the afternoon. It wasn't like their walk had been perfectly quiet. Elle's mom had been chattering to her the whole time about things Elle had trouble focusing on. Maybe this was what magic stuff felt like to her mom. Just a little too much cost in terms of brain power to really engage with. That said, there were lulls in the conversation, one-sided though it was, and it was during one of those that Elle brought up something that was bothering her. "Hey, Mom," she asked before her mother could get back into talking about learning a recipe for a vegetarian quiche. "Where is everyone?" Because Elle hadn't been through hell and back to get casually ambushed at the end of it. She had eyes, and a general instinct for trouble, and she kept her senses alert even when her mom just kept talking and talking and talking. It had taken a few minutes for it to click what was bothering her, but now that she realized it, it was a feeling she couldn't shake. There just weren't many people around. In a town that was mostly a population of campers and hikers, mixed with retirees looking for a quiet place to settle down, and the scattering of job seekers that followed for the cheap rent and fresh air, it was weird that on a beautiful day like this, there weren't more people out walking dogs, getting lunch, or teenagers hanging out in groups after school, anything like that. Her mom didn't seem concerned. "Oh, that. Well, you know how it is." "Is the pandemic actually keeping people inside?" Elle questioned. "No, silly. People are just moving away, or spending more time inside since we got broadband here finally. I can watch cooking shows on Netflix now, you know." Her mother's grin was almost infectious. It was almost enough to make Elle relax. Almost. She was so on edge, she just shrugged and told her mom to surprise her with an ice cream flavor while she stood outside the little shop's glass door with the dogs when they got there. Behind her, a cheerful "hello" from her mother as the older woman swept in and greeted the tired-looking kid behind the counters rang out. Elle smiled a little, but kept watching the street, some kind of rogue suspicion bubbling in the back of her mind. They'd finally fixed the pothole at the intersection here while she was away, the smooth strip of repaved road standing out like a black band-aid. Someone had, at some point, whitewashed over the giant pineapple she had spray-painted on the side of the bank one fun midnight a couple of years back. The city had new street lamps, with what were probably supposed to be hanging flower pots swinging from crossbars. The reality of the burning sun hadn't been kind to those plants, though. There were a few cars around, including one fairly nice-looking Volvo parked in the angled space in front of the ice cream parlor itself. But it wasn't like secret agent nice, it was just regular nice car nice. Elle shook her head. Maybe she was letting this get to her a little too much. So the town where everyone seemed to disdain television didn't have anyone outside. So what? There was a pandemic happening. Maybe everyone was being responsible. She paused and then snorted an unhappy laugh at herself. Yeah, right. Around here? Fat chance. There was a metallic jingle and a thumping noise from behind her. Elle dropped half the leashes she was holding and spun, hand already going to one of the knives hidden on her person. When she saw it was just her mom kicking the parlor door open, she froze. Elle, here, hold this. She awkwardly passed off a cone of frozen treat while maneuvering several other items with her arms in a free hand. Eleanor took the dessert while her mother knelt down to place a few bowls of cold water on the ground for the dogs, before settling herself on a metal bench next to where Elle was standing. Sit, eat your ice cream, she said, taking the dogs' leashes. Elle grinned slightly. Before she sampled the dessert she was holding, she used her now free hand to see what else her mom had pressed into her grip along with the cone. A slip of paper, it looked like, with a phone number on it? Her mother noticed her noticing, and nodded sagely. The nice young man in there was kind enough to give me his number for you. You know, since you didn't meet anyone on your trip. Not that you told me about, anyway. Mom. Elle felt herself turning red and wasn't sure if it was a sunburn or an equally damaging flush of embarrassment from her parent. Honey, you know I just want you to be happy, but also I would like grandkids someday, too. Elle wanted to hide behind her melting ice cream. Mom, she groaned. His name is Steve, and he is very nice, her mother said. Mom. Elle realized she wasn't going to have the words to win this fight, so she just shoved half a scoop of ice cream in her mouth and hoped that the brain freeze would kill her quickly enough. Her mother's laugh told Elle that she had been mostly kidding, but probably, certainly, not entirely. Elle decided to be humiliated anyway. Though, being fair, at least her mom hadn't tried to hook her up with a date when she was still standing there. You reminded me of your father for a second there. Her mother's voice was gentle now, worried. Any loud noise behind him and he was reaching for... She trailed off. Eleanor, what happened to my daughter? I told you, Mom, Elle said, not looking down. It looked like her mother was going to say something else when the door to the ice cream parlor opened again behind them, the little silver bell jangling with the motion. The tense mood was shattered as a young girl's voice rang out. Dogs! Look, Mom, dogs! A second later, a pattering of small shoes on the sidewalk before the owner of that voice, a girl of maybe 12 years old, leapt with both feet to land directly in front of the pack of perfectly behaved poodles and one flagrantly excited golden retriever. Hi, can I pet your dogs? The girl asked Elle with a beaming grin. Sure, Elle replied, unable to keep the answering smile off her face. The fluffy one's the most fun, she whispered, as if the other dogs might hear. From out of the parlor, following the young girl, came a woman who was probably her mother. Ava, she called, don't bother people. Oh, no bother at all, Elle's mom replied. Eleanor, this is Ava and... Jean, was it? This is my daughter, Eleanor. She prefers a nickname, of course. Of course. Jean gave a wavering smile in reply. Elle rolled her eyes again. Mom, do you just talk to everyone you run into, or are these actually old friends? They're on a road trip, honey. When would we have had time to become old friends? Oh, of course, silly me, Elle huffed, and then yelped as her mother tried to slap her on the wrist. Mom, stop embarrassing me in front of the kid who likes dogs. My name's Ava, Ava chimed in. And yeah, be nice to the pretty wizard lady. Elle's mom laughed, and Ava's own mother joined in, still seemingly nervous but otherwise happy that her daughter was having fun. Ava, oblivious to all of that, just kept trying to give the biggest hug possible to a dog that was basically the same size as her. Elle, though, went quiet, trying not to stare at the little girl, but finding it hard not to be instantly suspicious. All right, Ava, come on, we need to get back to the motel. You can find more dogs tomorrow, okay? Jean said. Thank you, she quietly addressed Elle, but also mostly her mom. She's been having a hard time lately. It's good to see her cheerful. Oh, bless her heart, Elle's mom said with almost smothering sincerity. Well, I hope your trip goes well. And Eleanor, we need to be getting these good boys and girls back to their owners. Why didn't you tell me how late it was getting? Her mother asked indignantly as she checked her watch. Mom, Elle's vocabulary had been reduced to practically a single word by this point in the day. It was only a few hours later, lying in her childhood bed, staring at the ceiling at 2 a.m, that Elle voiced out loud the question that had been in her head ever since a little girl had waved goodbye and bounded away, covered in shed dog fur. How did she know I'm a wizard?